part of our life and make it so simple that taxpayers would now be breathing a sigh of relief. Thank you very much. Jai Hind. And this is a question I would put to the chairman of the board. Can we have an institutionalized young professionals in CBDT, such as technologists, economists, data scientists, chartered accountants, and legal researchers into tax administration, reform, and analytics project? Do a project, get all of them together, tell what is going on the ground, and get the feedback, and make it institutionalized young professional in CBDT. Youth-led tax tech innovation and hackathons, innovation challenges can be developed in collaboration with the ICAI, IITs, IIMs, NLUs, and technology institutions to develop AI-driven solutions for compliance simplification and also for fraud detection. So in order to have that, you should have a youth-led innovation, tax tech innovation, and also hackathons. Of course, you've already started, I repeat, tax literacy campaigns for next generation across universities, professional institutes, and also startup ecosystems will be helpful. Now, we can have youth policy labs and young tax innovators forums to engage young professionals, startup founders, and early career tax practitioners in co-designing taxpayer services and compliance reforms. Fifth, the last but one, use technology to arrest evasion. I was looking for a better word than arrest, but I couldn't find. But I know what, I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say. We should restrain evasion, if I can use that word. Contain evasion. Make technology help you on it. Making paying tax so easy that honesty becomes the natural choice. But those who are willfully evading, those who are deliberately trying to get away, technology must catch them, but you should have the technology. If you're honest, the system will make your life easy, but if you're evading, the system will find you, is the message which should go to the taxpayer. And finally, the sixth, do not let this new act meet the same fate as the old one. Why do I say that? The Income Tax Act of 1961 started as a reasonably simple one. But year after year, provision after provision, exemption after exemption, it kept growing until it became 5.12 lakh words. We have now replaced it, thankfully. That, I don't know, disease, habit, what do you want to call it? That should not be allowed to repeat itself. Every time you think you want to do something with it, please sit back, consult. Don't come with a ready solution of bring an amendment. Let this act not become the 1961 Act in that it piles on every year newer amendments and becomes a huge tome. Ensure that there are ways in which you are able to do some things without complex amendments coming into it. This should continue to remain simple. It must remain clear. You've had stakeholders and Parliament being very convinced that excellent work has been done in getting this simpler version of Income Tax Act. Let that not be disappointed, let the people not be disappointed, or disillusionment about revenue officials should not set in because you're going on adding to the new simple law. The guidance I would have for myself, without taking too much of your time, is I had heard from Prime Minister Modi a speech in which he said Manav. It's a vision that he put forth to have a human-centric digital era. I think it was in that AI conference that he spoke about it, where, very simply, M stands for moral and ethical system. A stands for accountable governance. N stands for national sovereignty. A again stands for accessible and inclusive AI, because we are going to use AI. We need to have ethical AI. We need to have accessible AI. We need to have inclusive AI. And lastly, the last letter, V, valid and legitimate systems. So I think Income Tax Act 2025 must be rooted in moral and ethical systems. We need to strengthen and protect national sovereignty, fiscal national sovereignty. And of course, the reforms are not just data-driven, they are valid, legitimate systems that you're building on the trust was made to the nation that will come up with something simpler, and that is where the new act has come up. Work done in record 6 months, involving nearly, I'm surprised to say this, but I'll say, 75,000 person hours dedicated by the income tax officials to get this act done. And once when the cabinet cleared it, we went to the parliament to table it. It was sent to a select committee of 31 members of parliament who looked into it. They were from different political spectrum all across, and it was headed by Sri Baijayant Panda. A word of thanks to him in front of all of you. In record time, with intense number of meetings, bringing stakeholders from all over, the select committee which looked into this bill before it was brought back to the parliament had done an extraordinary work, as much as you officers did in making up this law. So the committee recommended 196 different points, of which 184 were accepted and made into, or the changes were made into the tabled act and then taken up later for discussion and passing. So actually the policy intent is underlined. Extensive consultation in the making of the law and also through the parliamentarians during the select committee. A lot of collaboration and commitment is what resulted in this particular act, which got obviously passed. For those who still ask what actually has changed, is it the same thing which you've recast in 21st century language? No, it is important for us to understand that every section has been recast, chapters have been changed, words have been cut down, and modern day approach of explaining through tables, explaining through formulae, explaining through examples, have all been part of this act. They've become part. So if you look at the sections, 819 sections have now come down to be 536 only. Thank you. 819 sections has come down to be 536 only. 47 chapters have come down to be 23 chapters. 5.12 lakh words is now only half, 2.6 lakh words. I wished it was even lesser. And then I said 40 new tables have been brought in to explain, and so on. I believe it is less ambiguous, and therefore the temptation to reach the courts and ask them for an interpretation should be far lesser now. And I think in a way, it lowers errors, disputes and compliance costs. It also shifts behavior from avoidance. If the law is simple and you're able to understand it, it shifts behavior from avoidance or confusion to voluntary compliance. And that's what I would expect. There are many more things that you can say. It's predictable, it is trust-based system now, and so on. But if I were to look at it from the point of view of a salaried individual, the confusing distinction between the previous year and the assessment year has been abolished. We now have a single unified tax year. Today, most of the individual taxpayers have already moved to the new tax regime. That tells you something. When you give people simplicity, they embrace it willingly. Under the new Act, for the small business owners too, there's so much. We've heard the stakeholders speak each from their own domain expertise. India's small business owners and professionals are really the engine of our economy. So under the new Act, the presumptive taxation scheme has been strengthened. Businesses with turnover up to 10 crore rupees, provided their cash receipts are below 5%, are now exempt from maintaining detailed books and undergoing tax audit. This should come as a big relief for all the MSME units, because most often they are not very clear, they think it's so complex, and therefore they have to seek the assistance of a tax audit. But then if this is so simple in the new Act, I think it's a relief for them. And for, let's say, the home buyers, pre-construction interest on housing loans is now explicitly available for both self-occupied and let-out properties. This was a matter of dispute under the old Act, and so many times I've heard people tell me about that's how complex it is. Under the new law, it is settled. It's literally black and white, and therefore it shouldn't lead to any confusion. Now, about Prarambh, which is happening today, I thought it was very clever, whoever coined it, policy reform and responsible action for Mission Vikasit Bharat, and therefore Prarambh. I think Prarambh itself is fine, but then imagine they had to bring this behind it, and therefore it's fine for the officers who are looking for what exactly is Prarambh, and those of us who have a problem saying, why should it be a Sanskrit word? Why can't it be anything else? There's some justification saying it is Prarambh because it's an acronym, and so it's all right. So the income tax website 2.0, which got launched today, is more intuitive, I understand, accessible and taxpayer friendly. We are also launching educational content and a huge FAQ, which is also user friendly because the answers are small, questions may be several, but answers are fairly simply done. So there are also sessions, samvad, and so on. I'm not getting into that. Physical outreach is also going to be happening. Now, with all this said, I like to take this opportunity to convey my little message to the Income Tax Department. You're not just tax collectors. You're the face of the government's relationship with the taxpayer. I've said this before also, I think. Sorry for repeating, but they are words which have so much of an important message. And therefore, since you're the face of the government's relationship with the taxpayer, this new law gives you a clearer and leaner framework to make it simple, to make it simpler for people who want to understand it better. However, a good law alone is not enough. So it must be administered with empathy.